I hope this interview serves as an example to folks and sends a very clear message that if you have an issue that isn't being addressed, you've got to speak up, you've got to communicate. If we don't know what you're going through, we can't advocate on your behalf. So this is personal. We need folks to come forward and ask for help.
Can you describe the dynamic between Harbour Bay and MacDill?
So even though the homes are on base, they are actually leased to a privatized company. In this case, it's Harbour Bay is in charge of managing and maintaining the homes. And while the homes are on base, there's limits to what authorities that base commanders have. But I think the easiest way to boil this down is the privatized housing company, they're in charge of maintaining the homes, while as leadership, we're in charge of advocating on behalf of our service members and getting them help if they need it.
What has the dynamic been like between you as the commander and also managers with Harbour Bay since all of this came to light?
So we've been meeting with Harbour Bay ever since this came to light. We meet with them every single week and we go over whatever issues or concerns, whether it's mold or water intrusion, whatever the issue may be. So we've been talking with them every single week. And since that time, we've been coordinating with them to create new processes where we know our service members so that they know where to turn, so that they know that there are different mechanisms in place for them to get help if they need it.
There's a line of communication between you all. Do you believe that they're actually addressing issues?
I believe they are. I think they've tried to institute some new processes to make that better. But honestly, my primary focus this past year has been on what I can control. And so we as the Air Force, we've put a number of different mechanisms in place so that families can get help. Because when you think of it, this is a leadership issue. Our service members, in order for them to focus on the mission at hand and to be able to answer the nation's call, they have to know that their families are safe and secure. And so for my role as the installation commander, we've tried to put a number of different things in place so that no matter what the issue is, that the service member or their family can get help.
Speaking of that, an attorney representing some of the families told us, quote, "We have a bigger issue at hand. Perhaps we have a national security issue as the mold has now harmed our active duty soldiers to the point where they can't even deploy." What's your reaction?
I can't speak for the broader Department of Defense. I can talk about here from what we've seen. So last February, we ordered a 100% review of all of our base housing. And we had 97 families came forward with their concerns, whether it was a question or a concern. And 97 represents about 17% of the homes on base. And so what we've really tried to focus on is not just the 97 families on that one snapshot in time, but for every family that's had an issue since that time to solve whatever issue that they might have that comes up.
Do you believe it's a national security issue?
I think making sure that our service members have a safe and healthy home, that is absolutely a leadership issue, that we have to make sure that our service members are ready to deploy and that they can focus on that mission.
To be clear, has this impacted force readiness?
I have not seen that at our base, or at least within our wing. I haven't seen that personally, but I can't speak on behalf of the broader Air Force or the department.
Or other branches who are here at MacDill?
Sure.
What are you doing as the commander to help these families?
Taking care of our families and their health and safety, it's one of my top priorities. And so when we first were made aware of the issue about a year ago, we really jumped into action to try and help families. So we've instituted a number of things. We're one of the first Air Force bases to establish a resident voice council, where it's a neighbor that can come forward and represent the entire neighborhood. We've also instituted a number of town halls. We even brought an expert from the Environmental Protection Agency to come down here to answer questions. We have held legal workshops with our base legal office, so if families have questions about what their legal rights are, we try to help them and try to advise them there. We've increased our government housing office staff, so again, it's more representatives that work for the government that can go out and help quality control and help advocate on behalf of our service members.
Colonel Snelson, prior to February of this year, base housing was not your job.
I would disagree with that in the sense that housing is a leadership issue, and it doesn't matter whether the family lives on base or off base. It's a leader's job to make sure that that family and that service member is safe and secure. As I said, a service member can't focus on the mission at hand unless they know that their family is safe and secure. So in regards, I think this is an issue that every commander should be engaged in, and every commander should be focused on, regardless of what branch or regardless of wherever they are.
This stems from private companies managing housing, and you have docked performance points. What does that mean when you dock performance points? Do you continuously still do that?
So every installation commander has a very small quarterly bonus that we can assess, and we look at different criteria, whether it's feedback from residents, from work orders, or from the chain of command, and then we could decide what that quarterly bonus is or is not. As far as the specific numbers, I'm going to have to refer you to the Civil Engineer Center, because I'm fairly certain that is proprietary information, but I'd refer you to the Civil Engineer Center for the real specific numbers.
But you have dock points?
Yes.
Have you seen that by docking points there's been motivation to do better?
Yes.
You live on base.
I do.
Have you had problems with base housing?
We have thankfully not had any health and safety concerns with my family. But like you said, whenever a family comes forward and they have an issue, it's not a nameless, faceless person. It's a neighbor. My kids play at their houses. They have sleepovers. So this isn't just business. This is personal for me. And so I don't care which commander is here in the seat, whoever carries the mantle after me, this is something that we have to make sure we get right. And it's something that we are dedicating ourselves to make sure that the process is there so that every service member can get help if they need it.
As you said, this is personal. These are your friends. These are men and women that you've served with for many years. If a family was moving to MacDill right now, would you feel confident and safe telling them to move into base housing?
Yes, I would tell them that they should have no fear moving into base, but the other thing I would do is make sure they're educated, if they have a problem, how to get that help. And first and foremost, it's speak up. You've got to communicate if you have an issue. Yes, file a work order right away with Harbour Bay, and then after that, if you don't have resolution, then speak up. Go to the government housing office. Go to your chain of command. We need to hear if you have a problem that isn't being solved. We're your advocate.
I have spoken with military families who have since moved here, since all of this has happened, and they say that these problems persist. How is this happening with all of these procedures that you have put in place, with all of the procedures that Harbour Bay management has put in place?
So we've got 572 homes on base, and of those 572 homes, we've got over 10 different styles of homes. We haven't found a single issue or a single problem that's leading to mold or any other issue, because it's a very dynamic setup with all those different homes. What I've really been focused on is making sure that the privatized housing company, that when an issue comes up, that they're fixing it. And if they're not fixing it, that resident knows who to turn to get help, and how do they get that problem fixed if it's not getting addressed.
These are your men, your women, your families. How is this still happening?
It's a complex situation with all those different homes, and there's no single cause of how these things are happening. What I'm really focused on is making sure that we've got the system in place where they can get help if an issue arises.
Are you truly satisfied?
I won't be satisfied until every family feels comfortable, confident, and that their concerns are addressed.
I have spoken extensively with the head of Michael's Management Services, which oversees Harbour Bay maintenance and management, the homes here on MacDill Air Force Base. He has said that this is not the Air Force, this is not the responsibility of the Air Force, that when people are pointing fingers, they're pointing at them for maintenance issues, and that they're right. Do you agree?
You know, I can't speak for Mr. Hansen, but I can tell you from my role as the installation commander, this is an issue that we've taken really seriously, and that I really believe that as long as service members know who to turn to, that's my focus. It is the role of Harbour Bay to maintain homes, and when work orders are submitted, to do those work orders correctly the first time.
Finally, Colonel, what is your message to the men and women and to children who live on this base?
I've conveyed to our commanders and all of our senior enlisted that this is a leadership issue. That if our service members are focused on things other than the mission, if they have concerns about their families, they can't answer our nation's call. They can't focus on the war fight. And for me, this is a war fighting imperative. And every leader out there should know that they've got to be involved, they've got to be engaged, and every service member should know we've got their back and we're going to continue fighting for them, because this is about them, it's about their families, and I take this very personally.